everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Nice to see you all here. We're going to take a few minutes to go live, but in the meantime, if you have any questions, please do send them in because we're going to try and answer as many of them as possible. Hello, and thank you for joining us because today I'm going to interview Thakoon Panichgul, the successful fashion designer who also collaborates with Tasaki, the Japanese jewellery house. And I'm in London at Tasaki's Bond Street boutique, and Thakoon is in New York. But that's not going to stop us having a tete-a-tete about a subject which I'm so interested in, which is how a jewellery icon is created. Because 10 years ago, Thakoon created the Balance line of jewellery, and 10 years on, it has become an icon and has a very bright future. Now, first, a little bit about Tasaki. This Japanese jewellery house was founded in 1954, and they are the most prestigious and largest house in Japan, as well as being the major producer of Akoya pearls in the world. Being Japanese, of course, perfection and craftsmanship is at the heart of everything that they do. And Thakoon, a little background on him, is a Thai-American fashion designer whose work is loved by women around the world for its functionality and easy elegance. And Thakoon, whether he's designing a piece of clothing or a jewel, innately understands what women really, really want. And if you look at the balance, you can see he has so elegantly broken convention because he's taken the classical pearl and made it so very contemporary. So let's talk to Thakoon about how this all happened. Hello, Thakoon.
Hi, Maria. Nice to see you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thakoon, when you were thinking about the Balance line, who was a Tasaki woman in mind when you created it?
I don't have one particular woman in mind, but I always think in terms of the energy of the woman. And for me, taking the reins in sort of like revamping the Tasaki brand, I wanted to sort of re-envision and reimagine the pearl and making it quite young and modern for today's women. Pearls have been around for centuries, right? But for me, it's about putting the pearl in the context of the woman who's really who lives in the metropolitan city, who's a go-getter. She's got a busy lifestyle. She basically just wants to be able to wear pearls with t-shirts, with jeans, with casual clothing. So that was sort of the foundation of the idea for the Balance.
Fantastic. And 10 years of success. What do you think is at the core of this success of the Balance? I know you've said wearability in a new generation.
I think it boils down to the simplicity of the design. When I envisioned the design from the get-go, it was, let's just showcase the pearl in its true beauty. And you can see that when you're looking down on your fingers, you just basically see the pearls floating, and then it's set on this really simple gold bar on the bottom. And I think that design itself really captivates the eye because it's pure in form. And so I think that pureness and that simplicity in design has staying power, has timeless elegance.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is in a powerful simplicity. And over the last 10 years, how have you kept this so fresh and so relevant? Because it has evolved.
Working within the realm of simplicity, I think that, when you boil it down to simplicity, what you can start to play with are different codes of that, right? And so we kind of twisted it and we made it slightly playful in even the new collection called the Balance Step, which, it sort of slightly separates a little bit, but then it still has the quality of the balance. I think that adding whimsy, adding playfulness, adding sensuality to the balance, those are the kinds of like playfulness, the kind of codes that we've been working with.
Yeah, certainly, and some words that you don't normally associate with pearls, playfulness and whimsy. So definitely a new take on them. And when you're looking to design, what color, what size pearls are you after, or do you have an open mind about how you approach them?
It's funny, when I first started working with Tasaki, I really didn't have that much training on jewelry design. And so I would go to Tokyo and I would go to Kobe and I would spend time with the technicians, but I would bring just my sort of sensibility in terms of visual to the table. And literally I would sit there and I would say, I want it to be this round. And I would draw the size and I would draw the roundness for them. But then what they would do is then they would put pull the pearl sizes out and then put them in the context of the paper that I was designing. And so by way of working very closely with them, I've really gotten to know sizing a little bit, but at the same time, I don't let that sort of technicality limit the way that I perceive the design. So even still today, I know that there's, the size 8 or the size 6 are like basically the most wearable sizes, but we spend time on the body and I really put them on my body just to see how visually it can look. So I'm not really limited to sizing.
Fantastic. And what about color? Do you have any preference for color?
I love the off-white that we always do. The Akoya pearl is just beautiful. But we've also worked with Tahitian pearls in the past, and it really depends on the design. I think that there are some designs where it requires a little bit of a darker hue, but there are other designs that are just really best, simple and classic. What I love though is to pair gold, yellow gold, with Akoya pearl, because I think that the two combination of that, I think that when we first did it 10 years ago, I think it was almost not, it wasn't heard of to put yellow gold next to pearl, but now I think 10 years on, it's become quite a gold standard, I think.
And when talking about Tasaki, we have to talk about craftsmanship. And how important is this in your creations?
It's enormously important. I think that I wouldn't be successful, and we wouldn't be as successful as we are at Tasaki today without the technicians behind the brand. They've been with the house for many years. When I first started, I was working with this main technician who had been with the house for at least 30 years, and he grew up with the house, basically learning from the very beginning and worked his way up. And so, jewelry design is very precise, especially when you're working with something as natural as the pearl. You really have to know how to set it properly in the context with other metals. And even when we cut diamonds, Tasaki is a house that has the ability to cut its own diamonds, as you mentioned earlier. And I think that even that, is the precision on that is very, very important. And I wouldn't be successful today without that precision.
Yeah, and you really see it in the simplicity of the balance, don't you? Because there's zero tolerance for error.
What the Japanese do well is that it's precise, it's very technical, but at the end of the day, the products look so effortless and so simple. And that to me is the striking balance.
Going back to the design process, with the step, you've taken the straight line and broken it. Can you tell me about that?
I like to rebel a lot of the time, and I think that sometimes rebelliousness breeds new ideas and breeds new energy. And I think that that's the exciting thing about design, whether it's fashion or jewelry. And for me, even breaking my own rules of what I've designed in the past just creates like a sense of fun, a sense of joy, a sense of newness. And that was essentially it. We studying the balance for 10 years now. We've been doing the balance for 10 years now. So 10 years on, I said, why don't we just kind of mess it up a little bit, and that was the starting point for this step.
I like that, messing it up a little bit. I don't think that is how people used to talk about pearls, is it? and then you keep this so ever changing. We've got the loop, we've got the neo, we've got the step that you referred to. So how do you follow through and keep the purity of the balance with all these variants?
It's really interesting to look back now with you. But when I design something, I never think about how it's going to be, how like I never look at the 20 years down the line. I always just look at the immediacy. But at the same time, I look at the immediacy in the context of what I perceive to be classic and timeless. And so, hence the balance idea came to life because it was so simple and so modern, but at the same time I felt at that time 10 years ago that it was going to be timeless. And so with that sort of energy, it's quite focused, that energy, that sort of idea. And if you can focus on that idea, you can really riff into different sort of themes from one singular idea. And I think, to me, that's been the joy of creating these offshoots of the balance. We've done it in many iterations, and I think that it's still there are still a lot more ideas to mine from it.
That's so interesting. And working as a fashion designer, working as a jewelry designer, are there overlaps? How does that work?
For me, they do. I look at the creative field, or what I do in creativity, as sort of an all-encompassing. I don't say that I'm just one, because if you're a creative person, you see things creatively all the time, and that can be applied to jewelry, to fashion, to interiors, to florals, to everything. It's aesthetic, essentially. And so for me, what has been really rewarding is, I do take learnings from jewelry design back to fashion, and then I take my learnings from fashion into jewelry design. So they sort of kind of like they help each other. All of these sort of creative outlets help each other as an overall.
Wow, that's interesting. Good to know. Now, we've had some questions coming in, Thakoon. You're obviously very popular. What for you is the key feature of successful jewel?
The key feature of the successful jewelry, I think, is the joy and the beauty of wearing it every single day. Like I think that's to me the most important thing. In the history of fine jewelry, obviously, women cherish them, and they purchase them and they cherish them, and they're heirlooms for the next generations. But sometimes they're kept in a little private box, or a little private sort of jewelry sort of case, where they're brought out maybe once or twice a year. But for me, I think successful jewelry designs and pieces should be worn every single day and all the time. And that's, to me, that's the joy that I bring to my designs, is because I envision them, the rings that you're wearing now, that you can wear them out to a cocktail party, to a dinner, to a gala, but then you can also wear them, with a white button-up shirt, suit jacket, great for work, great for day, great for weekend. So to me, that's the joy.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, I've got an interesting question here for you. What makes a piece of jewelry avant-garde?
Wow, that's interesting. I think that I think avant-garde is like avant-garde to me is a sense of rebelliousness. And I think it's a sense of taking the balance out of something. I think it's avant-garde. Twisting something is avant-garde. So for me, the balance step is avant-garde, because it takes a classic sort of idea and twisting it. I've done other collections for Tasaki, Refined Rebellion being another a collection that I've done that I really enjoy, which is in itself sort of avant-garde, in that it really takes an idea of jewelry and twists it on its head. For example, there's a stud that I've done, which is a simple pearl stud, but I've hidden the diamond on the back of the lobe. And that, to me, is avant-garde. The idea that something as beautiful and valuable and precious as a diamond that's normally seen on the front of the lobe is put on the back of the lobe. Like, that, to me, is an avant-garde idea.
Good. And one last question, which viewers have come up with, is how do you find inner balance in your life?
Well, I'm actually a Libra. So in astrology, that's, I'm a Libra. So I think that I'm just naturally a balanced person. I like, I like to have balance all the time. And that's just who I am. So if I'm really putting a lot of energy into one idea, into one thing for a period of time, I actually need to go to the opposite side on the next project. So that to me is sort of like my inner sort of dialogue with myself, how to balance. I take pleasure in work as as sort of like downtime sometimes, and that's my other balance. So when I'm working, let's say Monday through Friday, I'm really working, creatively, I'm on that work mindset. But on the weekend, when I'm always thinking creatively, but on the weekend I sort of shift my mindset into sort of like inspiration mode. And that's when I can sort of like relax. I can really sort of enjoy. I can really sort of take the stress of the weekday out and just really kind of balance the work week.
We've had a lot of questions coming in, and unfortunately, we only have time for a few, which we have chosen randomly. But if you do have questions, please send them in and we will make sure that they are answered. Thakoon, thank you so much for your time. Great insight into the success of the balance, and it looks like it's got a very bright future as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. Nice and balanced. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for sending in all your questions. In fact, we've had so many that we can only answer a handful. But please do keep sending them in, and we will make sure that we answer them all later by email.